Hello and welcome to Movie Night Mates, a real-time film commentary and sometimes review podcast. I am Dan. I really like movies, and I'm joined as I am every week by my good friend, fellow movie enjoyer, and the best fucking co-host,
Jess.
Yes. I had that one in the bank. I thought about that so much today because the last few times I've really forgotten until we've sat down. So I really
yeah, you made sure you came prepared. I appreciate that.
So yeah, new neighbors hate me now. Today we are reviewing a movie that we meant to review or wanted to review weeks ago and announced, and then it wasn't actually streaming yet, and none of us could make it to the movies and whatnot. So we are reviewing The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, aka the Nic Cage movie that came out this year.
That Nic Cage movie.
The Nic Cage movie. Jess and I are both pretty big Cage heads.
Oh yeah.
If we're to describe ourselves,
I think I'm his number one fan, honestly.
But I was talking about this movie with other people, and they were like, "What'd you think of it?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm predestined to like it because I just really like Nicolas Cage. In general, I don't think there's even in a bad movie or a bad script or whatever, he's still the best part of it, 100%. I really, really admire his ability to just give his all to whatever the fuck he is doing, and treat it, even if it, from Oscar movies where he's won Oscars, like Leaving Las Vegas, or even this, in terms of his better end movies and The Rock and Con Air and all that, he still treats it with just as much gravitas as The Wicker Man or any of those weird Ghost Rider and stuff like that, or Vampire.
I forgot about that movie.
What, Ghost Rider?
Yeah,
with his spray on abs, CGI abs, and also the one that was definitely filmed in the exact same prison as Malignant, which if you haven't seen that movie, go and listen to our episode on it and watch it with us. I love that movie. That was my favorite horror movie of last year, I think. It was not what I ranked the highest. I think out of horror movies, I ranked Last Night in Soho the highest, but in terms of personal enjoyment.
Yeah,
that movie,
the one you kept thinking about.
It's unparalleled. It was fucking wild. But I genuinely do like Nicolas Cage. How do you feel about him?
I feel like I guess just because I until I met you, really, I wasn't big on movies, honestly. Well, no, but we became friends in 6th grade, but I still haven't seen 90% of the movies people would say are classics, and out of the movies that he's been in, truly, I've seen National Treasure. I don't I don't know if I've seen anything else to be
and The Wicker Man.
No, I've never watched it.
What?
Yeah. No, because because of the one, whatever he says about the bees. You and I would quote that all the time. But here's the thing with me is that I'll quote anything that I hear. If I think it's funny, I'll quote it again a million times, whether or not I know what it's from or whether or not I've seen it. So.
I thought you had seen that movie.
Nope.
Holy shit, that opens something up for a commentary because wow, that movie is something else. We would definitely have to do the director's cut because that's the one that has the Not the Bees.
Not the Bees, not the Bees.
It's a very disappointing thing. Apparently, a lot of people go to watch that movie and don't realize they're not watching the director's cut and never get that scene. But I mean, funny. There's so many other funny. There's a part where he walks up to a woman with.
Oh, no.
Okay, so it's a shot. It's a long shot, and he's in a bear costume because he's undercover at this thing. So he's in a full bear costume, and he walks up to this woman, and it's completely silent, and she calls him by the wrong name because she thinks he's someone else in the costume, and he just punches her in the face with nothing, no other pretense. He doesn't say anything. There's no music. It's deathly quiet, and he just walks up and just bam, lays her out in one punch.
No.
That movie has Nic Cage beating up a lot of women. It is
no.
probably problematic.
But I mean, like,
shit,
Mandy's been on my list like forever.
I
Like,
love
so,
that movie.
you know, like, I feel like I know. To say this about a celebrity is like stupid, but I feel like I know of him more than I've seen him in anything.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
You watch a Nic Cage movie, you know what you're gonna get. Generally,
and just like seeing literally any clip of him in anything, like I get the gist, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and I know plenty of people that love him, so
me included.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I was gonna ask what your favorite performance of his was, but I don't know if you.
I don't even. And honestly, too, the last time I saw National Treasure, like I was a kid, so I don't. That's I think, and to say that I missed the boat, like he's just been a thing for so long, like, as far as memes or people loving him. So to say that I've missed the boat, I think is the wrong analogy for this, but
yeah, because
I'm not a fan. I have nothing against the guy. I think everything he does is funny, like, but I wouldn't say that I know much about him or his movies. Or
you just read like anything about him, like he bought a T-Rex skull or something. He had like a huge, like maybe a full skeleton of a dinosaur.
Jesus.
And he spent like over $100 million on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that they got right in this, is that he is horrible with his money. Like the reason he's been in so many random kind of smaller budget movies in the last couple of years is to like pay back the IRS, and he's done it. He did it. He accomplished it. But like that's why he did Mandy and that FNAF movie and Color Out of Space and Pig. I mean, and a lot of them are good, but that's why. But he bought this T-Rex skull, and then like the government of maybe I want to say like Turkmenistan or somewhere random was like, that's actually our property. Like it was stolen from them.
Jesus.
Then it went to another buyer, and he bought it from that person, not knowing it was stolen. And he just give it back and not get paid back for it. So like that's another reason. For the record, I think my favorite Nic Cage performances that I have seen are Vampire's Kiss, Face Off, and probably The Rock. And I mean, The Wicker Man is an honorable mention, but I don't know.
Not in terms of quality.
Mandy's up there too. Mandy is a wild, wild movie.
That'd
be a good one for us to cover. But this is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. We're going to be running.
Have we even said the title yet?
I did.
Okay.
And just kind of running through it and then giving our thoughts as we go through it. If you haven't seen the movie, I would say just go watch it. As to always kind of make your own opinion on something, but non-spoiler review quickly. I really enjoyed it. You don't have to be a Nic Cage fan, I think, to enjoy this movie, but being one and knowing the memes, as Jess mentioned, really helps your enjoyment of it. And yeah, definitely check it out. I think it's worth it. Maybe wait until it's a rental. Right now you can only purchase it to stream. But that's my 2 cents. If you have your 2 cents, Jess, as less of a Cage head.
Yeah, I think it was an okay movie. I have nothing against it. I don't think I'll watch it again, but I do think that I should have watched it. We should have done it, maybe not as a commentary per se, but I should have watched it with other people, because I think me not knowing much about him, like, I will get into it, but there were just certain aspects of it that were more distracting than they were funny to me. And so like there were things about it that I was like, if I were with other people and like everyone else was laughing, I think I would be less critical about it than like watching it alone for a review. Well, you know what I mean?
Let's hope that I can sway you during this time by filling in other parts. But I get what you mean. I was watching it. I really wanted Jess to watch it with me, and she eventually came downstairs as I was half an hour into it. Yeah. But as I was watching, I was like, it would have been fun to just watch this with you, not necessarily do a commentary, take our notes and shut up about it with each other. But like as I was watching, I was also like, two people I would love to watch this with are Mimi, who's been on the podcast before, and Dear Evan Hansen, still our most popular episode to date, who is a huge Cager, we'll call him, and JJ, who is a good friend of ours, who is also a big Nic Cage guy. Just kind of like laugh about those in jokes that it has. But a brief synopsis: this is basically a movie about a fictionalized version of Nicolas Cage. He is down on his luck. Oh, spoilers from here on out. He's down on his luck. He's kind of run out of money. He's not really getting the roles that he wants to, and he is offered an opportunity to take a quote-unquote role, which is basically just to show up at a super fan who is super rich, his birthday party, and just hang out there for the day, get $1 million. And he takes it, and he meets Javi, who may or may not be the head of an international crime ring. So then he gets recruited by the CIA to help them take down Javi. And hijinks certainly ensue.
Hijinks and hooligans. Hootenannies.
This is a movie I've followed since I heard about it. I don't really remember when it was announced, but like there was buzz that Nic Cage was going to be playing a crazy version of himself in a movie, and I was like, that is perfect. There's very few other actors who I think could pull something like this off, just in terms of like having that personality. Like maybe the only other person would be Tom Cruise, but he would never make fun of himself like this. So I think Nic Cage is the perfect choice.
I agree.
We open with Maria, who is the daughter of, what is the country? The president of another country. Catalonia. President of Catalonia. She's watching Con Air with her boyfriend, and then they are attacked, and she's kidnapped. And it's a very sudden and brief opening. And then we see Nic Cage. He is driving up to meet a director played by David Gordon Green, who is a real-life director, the director of Pineapple Express and both of the new Halloween movies, as well as the movie Mud, which Nic Cage was in, and a lot of people say is really good. Okay. And he's there to basically learn about a project and kind of pitch himself for that project that he's super into. And the meeting seems to go well. And then like it just like cringe comedy right off the top. Nic Cage is like walking the director to his car, and he's like, like if you want me to read for you, I can, but I don't need to. And they're like kind of playing it off and laughing. And then he's like, fuck it, I'm going to read for you. And like does this horrible Boston accent of this full monologue in front of a bunch of people in this courtyard. And like, then it just cuts to him driving home, and he's like really proud of himself and thinks it went really well. And we get the title card there as he's kind of like going home and jamming in his really nice car. Then we're introduced to a younger version of himself. Now I saw
it was like a jump scare
in the trailer. He was in the trailer, but I assumed he would just be in like one scene while they're like, I guess, doing like psychedelics or something. But no, he's like kind of just this disembodied version of Nic Cage that is his younger self, but also
like younger, cooler self. Basically.
Yeah, his actor persona is id, we'll say, like, but also it's kind of both sides of that, his id and his superego. His id in terms of like indulging in his passions and like just like bending to every whim, but also superego being like, no, you need to be the best actor that there is, and then like putting a lot of pressure on him. Who's named Nikki and looks like how Nic Cage looked in Valley Girl, which is one of his earlier movies and got remade into a jukebox musical a couple years ago starring Jessica Roth from Happy Death Day and Logan Paul.
Wait, what the fuck?
Logan Paul did not play the Nic Cage character. Someone else played the Nic Cage character.
But Logan Paul was in a musical?
He was in this movie. We should watch it because it is
I don't want to support Logan Paul in any capacity.
He's not a main character. He is like the jock.
Does he sing at all?
He has like one line, and it's during when they're singing Under Pressure by like...
Oh no.
Yeah. It's the movie that he met Chloe fucking... I can't remember. The girl from like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and like everyone says that she's hot and was upset that they started dating, but now they're not dating anymore.
Wow, you know all the drama.
I do.
Give us more deets. What's the tea?
Because I remember that they were dating, but the thing is, they filmed this movie and then it took so long to come out because of COVID that they had broken up like since they had met on the movie, dated after the movie, had a full relationship and broken up. I watched it during lockdown. Yeah. It was fine. I thought the de-aging, by the way, in this movie looked really good. I mean, it was barely a big part of it, but that's something you can really fuck up easily. And
yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just a shock because I guess I didn't remember because I remember. I mean, the trailer was like forced down your throat, like with everything you watch. So like,
Yeah,
I've
that
seen the
and
trailer a million
ambulance
times, but I
trailer
think
and
I
all that.
thought that it was just him in a leather jacket. So then when I like realized that it was de-aging, I was like, oh my god. But it was good. Like it wasn't bad. I was just like, oh my god, they like actually de-aged him.
And also, just a heads up, if you Google Valley Girl, the movie that he was in, that he has based his look off here, kind of. The poster has the titular Valley Girl, and then he's like the bad boy that she falls in love with. And he is on the cover, not wearing a shirt, only wearing a waistcoat and a short tie next to her.
That's
very, very 80s. Anyway, so they're like kind of discussing how he think it went, and they're both, on the same terms, but he's still being pushed by his younger self here. And then we cut to Nic Cage at a therapy session. He goes on a rant about working all the time, and everyone's complaining about that, and that's kind of what I just explained was his money troubles. And then it just like pans over, and his daughter is at his therapy session, just like completely checked out. Her name is Addie, and I gotta say, I kind of identify with Nic Cage in this scene because they're like, Addie's like, the therapist asked her to describe their relationship, and she's like, we just watch old movies and then discuss them, and by discuss them, I mean he lectures me for 2 hours afterwards. And then Nic Cage like hijacks the conversation to talk about the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and I was like, shit, if this ain't me, then...
And the best is like throughout the movie that kind of conversation comes up a few times, and every time he's like, you love that movie. Like, she's like, no.
Oh my god, I loved that so much. I guess I'm a less extreme Nic Cage because I still enjoy discussing movies with people. I like hearing what they have to say, but I've been known to go on a rant, go on a tangent. And then we meet Nic Cage's wife, who this confused me because like later they talk about their relationship and like years ago when Addie was a little kid, and I'm like, Nic Cage has had like 5 wives since the 90s. Like, is she one of his wives? Is it just supposed to be believed that this Nic Cage has only had one wife? But like some of them are pretty high profile. Like he was married to Patricia Arquette for a few years. He married Elvis Presley's daughter, mostly because she was related to Elvis Presley. And he just got married again like a year ago or 2 years ago. And he has 2 kids. I don't know if I would be offended by not being a character in a movie about my dad, or if I'd be thankful that like they just conglomerated my siblings and I into like one person, so it doesn't.
I was
really
gonna
matter.
say, I feel like for the sake of the movie, it makes sense to just have like, because mostly it's about his money troubles, I would say. So just having like one wife, one ex-wife, one daughter, just like that's it.
Exactly. It kind of focuses things.
Yeah.
Easily. And Sharon Hogan, I have to say, plays his wife, Olivia, and I love her. She's an Irish comedian, and I first saw her in Game Night.
Okay.
And I love that movie.
She looks so much like Connie Britton.
Oh my god, yeah, she does.
Like every angle of her, I was like I kept pulling up IMDb. I was like, this isn't like, I know it's not her, right? Like, but the way that she was like dressed the entire time, I was like, I'm looking at Connie Britton in Friday Night Lights. Like,
yeah, they are very similar looking. Have you seen Game Night?
No.
Oh, that's a great one. That's another one where it's like the 2 main characters. Like there's, it's pretty cliche to be like, oh my god, like people in relationships in movies, I just like see my own relationship in that. But the 2 main characters in that are literally Jess and me. They're the like a couple who are the like, they met at like a trivia contest or something, and they're both really competitive with each other when it comes to board games, and they're like known as like the hosts of Game Night amongst their friends, and like they take it really seriously, and they like plan out games beforehand and like have it perfectly put together. And it's just a very funny movie, and it has a great like ensemble cast as well. So that's another one we could maybe do later. And moving on, we're then introduced to Neil Patrick Harris, who plays his agent, and I was like, this is such a random role. He's not that big in this. And he's
Yeah.
just there.
It's
I guess it
random,
was kind of
and
like,
it also made me think, like, I feel like I haven't seen him in years. Like, what's the last thing that he was in? Like, maybe it's just because I don't necessarily follow him or whatever, but, like, I felt like it was so long since I saw him in anything. I was like,
yeah.
all right, how you been?
I think he and the cast of How I Met Your Mother just kind of took a couple years off
Yeah, exactly.
because,
But
wow.
even, like, I mean, I feel like he's been in other stuff since, but I was just like, I feel like I haven't seen his face in forever. Like, even, like, in the news, or, like, you know, I feel like I just haven't seen his face.
He, yeah, he hasn't really been in many movies. Like, he was in Gone Girl, apparently in Downsizing,
Oh,
that
the
movie
new
that had an
Matrix.
amazing
Right.
concept, but apparently sucks. Yeah, he plays a character in the new Matrix movie as well, which was so fun. Such a fun movie. And he just got announced today to be in the Doctor Who 60th anniversary special. That literally just happened. Anyway, he is not in very good financial shape, as Jess mentioned. He owes $600,000 to the hotel that he's been living at for a year. And Neil Patrick Harris offers him this job of $1 million to go to Javi's birthday party. Javi, played by Pedro Pascal, who is just perfect. I love that man and everything he's in. Introduced to many people in Game of Thrones and even more in The Mandalorian. So just a absolute powerhouse lately. And he's like, plays it off as, you know, I don't really want to do that. That's really sad. And all that. Then he leaves this like spa where they're getting beaten with like leaves the whole time to go to his daughter's birthday party. She's turning 16. He arrives and he's still like on the phone with his agent, who tells him that he did not get the job with the David Gordon Green movie, despite Nick thinking he did a great job at his quote unquote audition. And so he starts drinking. He gets drunk like really fast because his wife is like, we're about to sing. And then he finds out he didn't get the job. And then he pours himself a singular drink. And then they're singing. And he's like already like clearly kind of drunk. I don't really know.
Himself like 2 or 3.
I guess so. And after they finish singing, he sits down at the piano to give a speech. And again, like, I was really worried the whole movie was going to be cringe comedy, but this was kind of like the end of that in the movie, like him embarrassing himself in front of a bunch of people.
This was, though, like this string of like, I don't know, them being like in the spa and then him getting drunk. Like, I've said this before, but I cannot handle cringe. And one of my least favorite things is when people are forcing singing in awkward situations. And that's like always a trope. It's like you always get drunk and then you're singing something, and that's like always a thing in movies, TV shows, whatever. And like every time I literally have to turn the sound down, but I was like, but I have to know what he says because I'm literally reviewing this movie, so I can't just turn off the sound. And but I was like sitting there, just imagine me sitting alone on my couch, like visibly tense. Like, it was just, I hated it so much.
My note there is, where is his Grammy? You know, like I was moved by that. No, but he like is clearly pretending that this speech is about his daughter, but really it's just like to get attention.
Yeah.
Then he leaves and he's locked out of his hotel room. He calls Neil Patrick Harris and he's like, fuck it, I'll take the role.
Oh, and then this, and then he's crying. There was just too many cringe in a row, and I was like, I'm gonna need this to end.
This did get me good, because he's like, I'm gonna retire, and then he gives like this big speech, and then Neil Patrick Harris is like, sorry, I missed that, and he just like, and then just like exasperatedly sits down.
Yeah.
And now he's flying to Majorca for Javi's party as he lands.
Real life question here. Does every single movie use the same exact private jet set, or is there just,
probably,
when you say private jet, is there just one brand of it and they are the only private jet that anyone ever uses?
Gulfstream, I would say, are like the big one. I can't really off the top of my head,
because I feel like every single time someone's, again, on a private jet, every single scene where someone's drunk, they gotta sing. Every single time someone's on a private jet, it looks exactly the same.
I think that's generally how it is. It's probably
it's
like
just they all look
the
like
maximum comfort you can get within that space.
True. But
And I
everything has to
imagine if
be
you
that
like have
yellowy with the like
that's
red
I
wood,
know, I was
and
about to
I'm
say that's
just like,
probably the
I
default.
don't really
You
like
probably get it
that.
more custom if you actually buy one. But yeah, it's like Gulfstream, Cessna,
Okay,
Boeing,
interesting.
Airbus, they make
I had
all of
been
it.
watching
I think
something, now I'm gonna forget what, but I had been watching something earlier in the day and someone was on a private jet, but like in real life, and I was like, this looks exactly like what I was just watching. So interesting.
but like yeah, Gulfstream are like the G5, G6,
Okay,
whatever,
okay.
whenever you hear
I
that.
don't know a lot about planes. I'm not a plane gal, so I don't know.
Um Tiffany Haddish and Ike Barinholtz are there in Majorca as CIA agents. Vivian and I miswrote this. His name is Martin. All my notes say Marcus, so if I say Marcus by accident, that's because. And they're like, "What the fuck is that, Nic Cage?" Like, because they're gonna grab. They think Javi's coming in, and they're gonna grab him at the airport, but they just see that it's Nic Cage, and they have this good conversation about like what movies he's been in, and she's like, I just saw Crudes 2 with my daughter or my nephew niece or whatever, and she's like, have you seen that? And he's like, no, I have not seen Crudes 2. I'm a 40-year-old fucking man. I've seen The Rock and Face Off and like all these like old Nic Cage movies. I thought that was a really funny exchange. I really like Tiffany Haddish and Ike Barinholtz, so they were a fun addition to this movie for me. I think they're both really good at that like improv comedy, which can go wrong in movies like this. Sometimes they really let the camera go for too long. I think probably the best examples of this, of what's his name, Judd Apatow improv comedy, are like Superbad and the 21 Jump Street movies. I think are like just like the pinnacle of that, and a lot of other ones it feels like maybe they go on for a little bit too long. 40-Year-Old Virgin's good too, but I'm glad that like we're kind of back to more structured comedy movies. That feels like very dated now to just be like a bunch of shot reverse shots of two people just talking for 5 minutes and trying to make the other one laugh, basically. But I like them in this. So moving on, Nic Cage comes in. Vivian plants a GPS tracker on him while talking about Crudes 2. And then Nick meets Javi, who is a massive fan, and initially blows him off because he thinks he's just a speedboat driver or like personal assistant or something. He talks to Neil Patrick Harris on the phone while they're on the boat, and he's like, make sure he doesn't want you to like suck his dick or fuck his wife or watch him fuck his wife or whatever. And then they land, and he gets out and he like starts to ask Javi, not knowing it's him, about these things, and he just kind of cuts him off, and then they fully meet each other. It was pretty funny. I actually like that a lot. I think their relationship, and I'm not breaking new ground saying this, is like the reason this movie works. I think these two actors just have really good chemistry with each other, and their relationship is so fun to watch and like see it blossom.
And in the beginning too, like when because Javi's obviously a huge fan, so then they're like sitting by the pool or whatever, and Javi's like trying really hard to like act cool around Nic Cage, but him trying to literally, all he's doing is walking up to where Nic Cage is like, laying down. All he's doing is sitting down in a chair, and it's just the way he's moving his body, and he's like trying to like adjust and then like sit down or whatever. I was like, he's going to be very funny in this just because of how like uncomfortably awkward he is, but it's like endearing because it's like, oh, he's just like a really big fan and like wants to seem normal and cool. Like, so I thought he played that well. It was funny.
So fun. I love Pedro Pascal. I've already ranted, but he's fantastic. And his Vanity Fair, I think, is the company that do it. Those videos where they hook them up to a lie detector and ask them a bunch of questions is really, really funny too.
Yeah.
And I gotta mention that amazing TikTok, and to Mr. Pedro Pascal, I know it's uncut and girthy. Hit my line. That just got me. It's so good.
Jesus.
It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites,
Interesting.
We're half an hour in. We can say whatever we want. And so yes, he's depressed by the pool and speaking like a Shakespearean character, and then just like jumps in the pool with his beer, and Javi saves him. And yeah, the introduction here was really funny. I'm just being so awkward, but Javi has a screenplay he wants Nick to read and star in, and thinks Nick has already read it. The next morning, he insists that Nick join him on a trip to some really nice cliffs, and as they get there, Javi like starts pretending they're in a movie and being chased by the general. And they get to the cliffs, and Nic Cage has probably my favorite line reading of this movie, where he's like, "We're on some wild goose chase," and it was just like perfect Nic Cage. And then Javi kind of gives this speech about how Nick's acting is a gift to give the world, and kind
the whole
of
thing was
brings
very
him
meta.
back. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very meta. I mean, this whole movie is meta as shit.
Well, yeah. But this was the first like real like, okay, this is like very meta. Like they're acting, talking about Nic Cage's acting while they're both acting in a movie about Nic Cage. Like it was just like, oh my god.
And then so Nick joins him and they jump off the cliff together, and then they kind of have a nice heart to heart.
Then they're besties.
Yeah, and then they have a favorite movie discussion, and I liked this because
I know why you liked it.
Him, yeah, I mean, there's a very clear reason why I liked it, but Javi asks him like what his favorite movie is, and then like you just get like clips of him probably talking for an hour and a half while they drive back to Javi's compound as to why he does not have a favorite movie and how it's impossible. And then he asks Javi his top 3 favorite movies, and Javi's are number 1, Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage, which is a fantastic movie. Also, John Travolta is a really good part of that movie because about a quarter of the way in, they swap faces, of course. So then it's John Travolta pretending to be Nic Cage, and it's fucking beautiful. Next was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which Nick always says he really likes. And then his number 3, which Nic Cage finally gets out of him, is Paddington 2, which is based as shit. And my note
here, my note here is can't wait for Dan to talk about his reaction to the Paddington bit.
Oh yeah, I like screamed. I was very excited about that.
Like of all movies they could have picked.
And then Nic Cage is like, Paddington 2, and he's like, it is a masterpiece. It made me want to be a better man. Like, it made me think about all my, like, all this stuff. And then it cuts to them watching the end of Paddington 2, and they're both, like, sobbing. And Nic Cage says, Paddington 2 is incredible. And so then it cuts to them, and they're, like, drunk later that night, playing Truth or Dare in the pool. Nick reveals he didn't read the screenplay, so Javi sends it to him. And like Nick says, like it's the most fun he's had in years, and you know they're hitting it off remarkably. My note here is this is my favorite rom-com of 2022 so far. And then
I did at one point think that, and I won't get ahead of it because I was thinking this later on, but I did at one point think like, I wonder if this movie's genuinely going to end with them making out. Because I was like, it's not that far off from what they've written so far. So,
well, it's funny you mention a makeout because Nick goes to read the script at a bar, and Nikki shows up again. And, you know, does the whole Nick fucking Cage bit, and then gets up to leave and kisses him, and then they just like kiss for like 10 seconds.
So
like,
awful.
Nic Cage smooch is good is like the line of that scene, and they just say it multiple times.
Too much.
It was
the Nick fucking Woo Cage thing. Like, I don't know. In the trailer, it was like the one thing that I was like, this is a little. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not
sorry
into
I
it.
introduced the episode that way then.
But then that scene happens, and he does the Nick fucking Woo Cage, and I was like, okay, so now that clip's over, and like whatever. And then suddenly they're making out, and I was like, whoa. Like, this whole thing just gave me like uncomfortable whiplash.
It was beautiful. It's now that Nick gets snatched by the CIA, and they're like, help us. Javi is the head of an arms cartel. Mm-hmm. And Nic Cage is like, I can tell, like, as an actor, I can read people, and I can tell he's, like, a good guy. And he has this good back and forth between Ike Barinholtz and him about how he's, like, so you're saying that your acting ability is better than, like, decades of CIA research and all this stuff? And it's really, really funny. And he's just like, yes, it is. Spoiler alert, he turns out to be right. And they want him to help just locate the daughter of the president of Catalonia, Maria. And he agrees because Vivian, who like kind of girl boss gatekeeps, gaslights him this whole time, like just guilt trips him into like helping basically, even though it's not really his responsibility. He's just Nic Cage. And being like, if you don't help, then every time you look at your daughter, you're just gonna like see this dead girl.
Classic.
It's really harsh. So then we cut to him at the party, and
I did like the music around this part of the movie, though.
Yeah, like the transition here, and there's a transition later that I really liked too.
The music
Involving
gets
him,
funky
like,
at this part in the movie. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, I really liked that. And he has to like infiltrate a server room so they can track down Maria, and he gets there, and then a guard starts coming in, so they're like, put this neutralizing agent on your hand, and then he accidentally touches his forehead and then doesn't realize it, and he starts to like basically lose consciousness and get super high. This scene was really funny too. He climbs out onto like the balcony to escape and manages to get the antidote, but passes out, and Vivian has to like yell action to get him to yell to wake back up, which works, and he gets out of it unscathed. But they need him to stay a little bit longer to actually locate where Maria is on the compound, because they think that she's there. And so while Javi is giving a speech about, you know, his birthday and how happy he is that Nic Cage is there because of his relationship with his own father, reminded him of a movie called Guarding Tess that Nic Cage starred in, which I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
It's a huge blind spot for me. And so Nic Cage says he read the script, and his excuse to stay on the compound is to write another movie with Javi. So Nick and Javi do LSD the next morning and go driving and brainstorming.
The music at this part specifically was my favorite out of the entire movie.
Yeah,
because it's like super jazz. It's like,
funky.
I think the subtitle said like psychedelic jazz playing or whatever, but it was like so much fun, and then them just being absolute idiots. Like,
yeah,
it was a good montage.
This was a great whole sequence. This whole LSD part might be my favorite part of the movie. And so they go into town, and they're just like chilling on some steps, talking about their movie, and they're discussing, you know, it should be like a grounded adult drama, and like kind of realize that maybe it should be about them and their relationship, their weird relationship already. And then Javi starts to get really paranoid about people watching them in town. And you get this great exchange where Nick's like, well, don't look again, but if you do, just, you know, like pretend you're just laughing at a joke I made, and you're like looking over at them. You happen to do that. And he does, and he just stares at these people and has like the most demented look on his face, and just like laughs the whole time
for like 5 straight seconds.
And then we have like an amazing quote unquote chase scene where they're being chased by nobody. And they end up at this wall. And, you know, this scene was in the trailer, but I still really enjoyed seeing it in the actual movie, of like this exchange where Nick is able to get on the wall, but he's not able to bring Javi. So they have this like really dramatic goodbye because they think he's about to get killed. And then Nick makes it to the other side, and Javi is just standing there because he just walked around. Great payoff, and I liked it a lot. My favorite part of that scene was when Nick's trying to lift him up. And he's like, you're a lot heavier than you look. And he's like, I have a big head. As a person with a large head, I enjoyed that joke.
And at this point, too, like when they're talking about the movie, they'll talk about something, and then like it'll just happen. Like I can't remember exactly, but it'll be like, and then, you know, maybe there's like a bit of paranoia to it, whatever. And then that's when Javi starts being like, well, I think I'm being watched. So like as they're saying things too, it's immediately happening.
Oh my God.
Very on the nose.
And then Nic Cage drives the car, and Javi convinces him to drive them home because he thinks they're still being chased. And he's like, but you did all your stunts on Gone in 60 Seconds. He's like, where'd you hear that? And he's like, the DVD special features. He's like, shit, yeah, I did. I popped a good wheelie. And he was like, yes, your wheelies were the best. It was so good. Just their back and forth, their banter. And they get back. Javi has passed out in the car, so Nick goes to like a restricted area of the compound, and Javi follows him. And he's like, do you want to see what's in there? And he's like, yes. And he's like, well, it could change our relationship forever, implying that it's Maria or, you know, guns or something. And then they go in, and it's a huge Nic Cage shrine. He's like, I'm worried that if you saw this, you would think different of me. And it's just like a ton of references to Nic Cage movies. I was very happy to see Mandy represented in there, not only with the chainsaw, but with that like sick blade thing, which is in the movie as well. You know, they have the bunny from Con Air. I think the Declaration of Independence was in there somewhere for National Treasure. It was just like all over the place. And they had the bomb from The Rock, which is a wild movie. I suggest that movie to anybody because it has Nic Cage and Sean Connery, and Sean Connery, people believe, is playing an older version of James Bond who got captured by the U.S. government or something like
People
that. People
believe that's not like, what the plot is.
It's like the head canon because it's basically he is James Bond, but just not officially. Like he's a British agent who was captured by the Americans because he got caught spying on them, like in the Cold War, and then he gets taken out to be an agent and help Nic Cage stop this guy from blowing up Alcatraz. It's a whole weird thing. Pedro Pascal, I gotta say, is adorable in this scene. I love this. He reveals this full life bust of Nic Cage in Face Off with custom-made golden guns that are functional, literal Chekhov's guns here, and there's a Chekhov's knife later, so a couple bonuses for you. Nicolas Cage is a Kino man as well. We learn, but like they have this whole back and forth about the this bust, this wax figure, and you know how grotesque it is. And he offers to buy it off of him, of course. And then we get a scene with Cage meeting with Vivian, and she's like learning that they're writing a script together and all this stuff. And Nic Cage is saying how great Javi's instincts actually are and all this and how much fun he's having. And she's like, well, why don't you try to find the girl by putting a kidnapping into it? And he's like, yeah, but that like really wouldn't work, like tonally, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that'll like clue him into me being who I'm not, who I say I am, not being who I say I am. And so she's like, make it a trailer moment, and then we get a scene with him discussing this with Javi, and Javi like almost pulls a gun on him and saying, you know, like, this is because you feel guilty about your daughter, that's why you want to add this kidnapping in, you're like all these things. And then Nick finds out after this that you know, Vivian has been made, and she's like, you've probably been made too, get out of here. And then I don't know if this was two back to back, but they kind of did like the setup for Javi being like really intense and something bad's about to happen with like a payoff of it being funny. Like I felt it was two back to back because he had the whole gun scene. Then the next scene he's in, it's like leading Nick away somewhere, and it's just his family is there because he's like forcing them into family therapy, basically.
Yeah.
The phrase character-driven adult drama comes up so much in this movie. It made me laugh every time because you just like hear that so much nowadays, like in terms of like Marvel movies and all that, and people comparing that to these smaller budget character-driven adult dramas. They have like this Nick like tries to apologize to his wife and ex-wife and daughter, and they like just call him out on his bullshit. And even Javi's like, wow, that was fucking terrible. Like,
yeah.
that was pathetic. And then his daughter really does have like they do start to have a conversation. She calls him out for being self-centered and narcissistic and like always talking about himself and relating things back to his career or like what he wanted for her, and you know, making her watch these movies, which he says is because he really likes them and he wants to share them with her, and she feels more like she's being molded into like just a mini version of him. And it's a really good back and forth and a really good character moment, ironically, after talking about the character-driven adult drama. That's this part of the movie. Then we get a scene with Javi and Lucas, who had been in a couple scenes earlier and appeared to be like his henchman, but we learn here that Lucas is his cousin and the actual head of the crime family. And they have a potential deal coming up with like the Italian mob, and specifically a mobster who has been underground for like 15 years. Javi didn't know about the kidnapping. We learned that here. Meanwhile, Nic is telling Olivia and his daughter about the CIA situation and about Javi. Vivian tells Nic to kill Javi, and Lucas tells Javi to kill Nic. He's basically like, he tells Javi that what Nic's been up to and says, either I kill you or you kill Nic Cage. And then we get this like great scene of them like walking to meet each other. I really like this
right
setup.
before this too, when Nic goes to grab the guns,
that was it. Yeah.
So he goes to grab the golden guns, and there's like, it's like a 2-second shot or whatever, but it basically merges his face and then the reflection of the statue's face, like in the mirror.
I have a note about that right here.
And it like kind of made me giggle because obviously they couldn't line it up perfectly, and like the statue of him, it doesn't really look like him that much, so it's just like a funny looking like double image of him.
Yeah,
I mean, but I really
like
like
that
serious,
still,
like he's got to kill his best friend kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. I liked that. I thought it was cool. About like, how he has to kind of reclaim his former self to get this done. They go to the cliffs that they had their fake confrontation with earlier in the movie. To clear their heads and think out their third act. As we enter the third act, when they get there, they trade shoes. This great conversation about like how good each other's shoes look, and like, you want to trade? And he's like forever, and he's like, well, yeah. And so Nic gives Javi his Vans, and Javi gives Nic his penny loafers. It's really funny. It's like, have you know the game A Way Out? Like that movie, like the game came out a couple years ago that was about like.
Yeah.
You guys escaping prison. Yeah. Spoiler. Do you know how it ends?
Yeah, I played it.
Okay.
Like less than 6 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Spoiler alert for that if you're listening. But like that game ends with basically it's a 2-player game the whole time, and it ends with you have to like
work together.
Fight. Yeah, and at the end they fight each other, and one of them has to die, and you have to kill the other one. It's a lot, and this reminded me a lot of that. Like
I played it with my dad, and I killed him in the end.
Were you the guy with the big nose?
I was.
He's the one who should. Leo, I think.
Yeah, at the end we talked about it, and my dad was like, like I'm not mad about it, but like I could, because we like play games together because we don't live together, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's not as good at turning the camera and shooting and whatever. So like it was kind of a challenge. So in the end, it's like you got to press the button faster than the other person, or like aim and shoot faster than the other person. So like obviously I killed him. It was very funny.
They do, though, talk through the situation. Like, they admit to each other what's going on. I love that. Like, I hate in movies, it's, like, the concept is, at least I've heard it from the Weekly Planet, Nick Mason from that calls them Post-it note movies that can be solved if someone literally just left a Post-it note somewhere, like, explaining one thing. Yeah. Romeo and Juliet is a really good example of that, where it's like, these miscommunications that just go on for forever and lead.
That's honestly down
dying.
With the miscommunication trope.
I hate it. Oh my god, dude.
I'll be reading webtoons, and really then it's like, because I read a lot of romance webtoons, and there's so many of them that are like, okay, now they're together and happy, but oh no, one person's held a secret the entire fucking time, and they won't say anything about it, and it's like, I can't stand this kind of trope. I can't stand this like storyline. It's just
the only time it works is in a sitcom for like 20 minutes as an episode, and
one thing, and that's it.
Yeah, I can't stand it otherwise. But yeah, they talk through it, and they're like, I love you, I don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
All this stuff. And they don't kill each other, but they get attacked by Lucas's men because he knew that Javi wasn't going to be able to go through with it. And as they're running away, Nic is like, I should always trust my instincts as a thespian. Like, all that stuff, how he was right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Then they're kind of pinned down and see the Jeep that they drove there in, and Javi has this plan that Nic should go and get it and come back, and again pulls the fact that Nic like does his own stunts and stuff on him, and they have this good back and forth about like the penny loafers, but then they end up just both going to get the Jeep and leave, and it's a real chase scene now. With guys on motorcycles, and I love this part where he's like, slam on the brakes, because the motorcycle guy will just hit the back of the Jeep, and Nic Cage does it, and the guy flies in, and he's like, well, now and then he just gets punched by the guy, and then they actually get him out, and this is where Chekhov's knife shows up. The guy drops it in the back of the Jeep.
Yeah.
They get back to Javi's compound. Addie has been taken. So Liv, Gabriella, who is Javi's assistant, who he has a thing for, and they kind of discussed that earlier in the movie. I didn't really bring it up because, I'm sorry, it's not really that important to the plot.
Yeah.
And then Vivian and Martin are compromised and die. I was not expecting that.
I didn't expect that. And also, can we talk about how god fucking awful the music was while they were being held? It was this like high pitched wailing, screaming, singing thing going on, and there was just like good fight or good like chasing music, and then there's this like oh whatever, and it was so fucking annoying. And I think like, it was kind of like making fun of like those. But the music was so good so far, like so good, so funky, spy movie, whatever, and then like it just got awful. And I was like, who chose this song? Especially because then I didn't like it was so distracting. I didn't realize they like actually died. Like,
I
just thought it was like, oh, they're knocked out or whatever.
She got like shot in the shoulder, like and there's barely any blood. I thought Marcus was just like unconscious.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So
but I checked Cinemorgue before this, and they were both listed as dead, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, interesting.
But in the process of dying, Vivian does save Nic Cage from being shot and kills a bunch of Lucas's men. It's at this point that Nic Cage has like this confrontation with Nikki in his like mind palace about like what he should do, and like Nikki's like, get the fuck out of here, like you're Nic Cage, just go do like become the action star you're supposed to be, but like on screen. And apparently there was supposed to be an entire fight scene between Nikki and Nick at this part. In what was going to evolve into like a Cabinet of Dr. Caligari set with a bunch of Nic Cage's other characters popping up during the fight.
Yeah.
And it was filmed, but it got cut. Which I think was stupid. I would have loved to see that, but apparently it's going to be on like the home release. I would have loved to see that, but I also
think it would have been distracting because there's so much action going on, and now it's getting to like the action chase part of the plot. So then to just suddenly have him literally fighting himself, like it would be like it would have been cool to leave in at some point, but I don't think it would have been at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it could have been like before when he's like struggling to, you know, whether or not he's going to kill Javi or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. You know? I get that. I want to see it though.
I do think it would be funny to see. I just think at this moment, I don't think they could have just moved it up a little.
Exactly. But Nick resolves to help save his daughter and Maria. We find out, well, they go to Javi's safe house. We find out that Lucas has like a monastery compound, which is where he would be keeping the girls. So Olivia, Nick's ex-wife, they met because she was a makeup artist, turns him into Sergio, the head of the Italian crime family. No one's seen him for 15 years. And when they cut to him, I did laugh out loud, like genuinely. He looked so stupid and was acting insane.
It was insane, yeah.
But Olivia does save his life from Lucas, who like pulls a knife on him. It's like, why are you even showing up here?
Yeah.
All this stuff. But it's short-lived. They get captured anyway, and are taken to Maria and Addie. But Nick is able to get Lucas's gun and hold him at gunpoint while Liv gets the girls and runs. And Lucas is like, he's like, I can't believe it's Nic fucking Cage. And he's like, yeah, it's Nic fucking Cage.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful, beautiful stuff.
The whole, like, whatever they called it, like looked like a dungeon from like Game of Thrones or something. It was very weird.
Well,
it had these like big arches. It reminded me of where like all those dragon skeletons were, like underground, you know, I'm talking about all the statues like that, and like the floor's dirt, everything's kind of like all old stone, whatever. I was like, are they suddenly in Game of Thrones?
I think Game of Thrones was filmed around there.
So maybe it was, you know, a similar looking building or something.
Yeah, I know that they filmed a lot in Spain, so it could just be like Spanish art.
Architecture or whatever. Yeah, Spanish basements, fancy Spanish. Basements.
It was. I think it was used. Cool.
Interesting.
Cool. but yeah, I guess it's just like, the medieval basements.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like Nick is still surrounded by a bunch of goons. He has Lucas at gunpoint. And Liv, Gabriella, and the girls are found by this same henchman who keeps popping up. And I thought it was really funny that Gabriella was like, this fucking guy. So they hit him with the car. And then eventually he gets shot by Javi. Javi saves them because... Oh, wait, sorry, no. Nick gets out of his situation by using the same monologue from the David Gordon Green movie earlier and stalls for enough time to get Luke's gun again and shoot a couple guys, and Javi shows up and saves him for real. And then Javi and Nick save the girls from that one henchman. And Maria is seeing Nic Cage for the first time without all the prosthetics. And her line here is just, Nicolas Cage, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
I hard agree with that one. Anyway, they start driving to get to the U.S. Embassy to basically get the fuck out of there. On the way, Javi jumps out of the car and Gabriella joins him to slow down Lucas and his men. And they have this like last stand, and Javi's using the golden guns. And I wasn't sure if he was actually going to die here or not, but he does get shot. And they still, the goons get past. They end up at the embassy after a really great chase scene. I really enjoyed this, of like this Jeep through the streets of Majorca, I guess it must be, and end up back at the embassy. But Lucas follows them and is holding everyone at gunpoint. Then Addie throws Chekhov's knife to Nick, and he turns around to stab Lucas to kill him. And then it cuts to the movie version of this happening, and Demi Moore is his wife and all this stuff. And, they get a standing ovation at the premiere. And now Javi and Nick are like business partners. Yeah. And it's really, really nice.
This was funny.
I thought it was fake. I thought Nick got like knocked out or something, and he was or he got like shot as well.
Yeah,
and he was gonna wake up. But no, it's real. And they had a successful movie, and everyone loves it. But Nick elects to leave the premiere to spend the night with Olivia and Addie. I know. I was really disappointed that he ended up
when they're like Olivia. When they're like talking at the end of the movie premiere or whatever. I was like, are they gonna do it? And then they didn't.
Yeah. Nick ends up back with Olivia. Javi ends up with Gabriella, and they
I mean, as it should be, but whatever.
Yeah. They kissed earlier, Gabriella and Javi, but whatever. And then it's Nick and his family having like a movie night. They're discussing his belt buckle, which is a giant tarantula, and his wife is like, you should have gone with a bee. And he's like, no, not the bees. And I was like, I did it. I was wondering if they were going to get a Wicker Man in there, but they did. That movie, so fucking funny, man. I can't believe we haven't watched it. I used to put it on all the time in high school. It was like my go-to.
I mean, maybe I was over once when it played, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about it. I feel like I've only ever quoted
How to get burned.
How to get burned.
Exactly. I think you've definitely seen. I feel like we're gonna put it on for a commentary, and you're gonna be like, I've seen this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I quote everything. So, I mean, once we started saying things about bees and burned, like, yeah, I'll just quote it.
But then again, if you've seen Midsummer, you've seen.
Oh my God.
He lets Addie pick the movie for once, and she picks Paddington 2, and then, it dollies up into the hills of Hollywood.
I thought at this point when it pans up, it was gonna like pan to the second story window, and it was gonna be like the statue of him or something. Like I thought that was gonna be at the end, and then it was just like a totally normal pan up, fade out, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I thought that was gonna be like one final joke.
There was gonna be like a bunch of guys on his roof, like about to like bust in, and it would be like leading up to the sequel or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, we get a wolf call of Nic fucking Cage, and then the movie ends, and there's no post credits or anything. During the credits, which I think is bold. But that is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Yeah. I think that's our fastest run through of a movie.
Yeah, you were.
Let us go.
I mean,
I'm zooming.
You were good.
you get me talking
And
about
to be
Nick
fair,
Cage.
I didn't write many notes, so I didn't have
Yeah.
many interjections anyway.
I noticed that there wasn't a lot like of action to write down. There was just a lot of dialogue and really funny dialogue. So I didn't want to say all of it because, you know, that kind of ruins the experience of seeing the movie. And that's just us parroting jokes. But there were still some jokes I wanted to parrot because it was so funny. I really like this movie. I am happy to start the rating as we kind of wrap it up. We rate the movie out of 10. We say whether or not we liked it, because you can still rate a movie highly, but say, not my cup of tea. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt about a movie I saw recently in theaters. Bob's Burgers movie.
Really?
I was like, I can appreciate this was well made, but I'm kind of bored out of my fucking mind right now.
Interesting. I used to love Bob's Burgers. I haven't watched it in years.
I saw so many reviews of people being like, you don't need to be a fan of the show to enjoy the movie. And I'm like, I feel like you do. Because the whole time I was like, I couldn't stop thinking like, wow, I wish I watched the show because I probably would like this and get these jokes more.
Yeah, like understand the characters more or whatever. Okay, but anyways.
Anyway, back to this one. We say our favorite character and our favorite scene. My rating for the movie, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed my time with it. It's not an amazingly made movie, but it was like what I wanted it to be. I was not disappointed. It was what it said it was going to be. I really enjoyed a lot of the references. They didn't feel too heavy-handed, and like I feel like the movie didn't rest on them too much. Like they didn't rely on the references. They weren't like there was no point in the movie where they felt like written into a corner comedically, and then we're like, let's just put a reference in here. It was like they all felt organic and good. I really enjoyed like how it was shot as kind of in a comedy way, but also a classic Nic Cage action way. I enjoyed the script, the dialogue. I don't know what was written and what was improv, but I think, you know, it really lent itself to this relationship between Nic Cage and Pedro Pascal's character, Javi. Apparently, when Nic Cage was approached about the movie and read the script, he wanted to play Javi because he thought it would be more meta to have him playing a fan of himself and then cast someone else as Nic Cage. But then once Pedro Pascal got put in the mix, he was like, actually, no, I get it. And I like the music as well, like you pointed out. And it was just a very enjoyable time. I think if you're looking for a light, fun action comedy, this is certainly something you can look into. I know that The Lost City came out around the same time and with a similar premise of like a famous person gets put into a really shitty situation, also in like a tropical area with a crazy villain and stuff like that. I still have to see that one. That's the one with Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock and stuff, where she plays a romance novel writer who gets captured by a fan who's played by Daniel Radcliffe, who's apparently the best part of the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one I want to check out. My favorite character, I gotta do two. It's gotta be Nick and Javi. I mean, like, there's no way it's not. And my favorite scene is their whole LSD trip. I feel like drug trips in movies can be overdone and kind of bad sometimes, but I really thought that they nailed it in this because there wasn't any like weird effects or anything.
I was literally just going to say that. I was just going to say that. What made it believable was that there was no like wobbly shots or like, whoa, the screen's wavy. It was just them acting weird, which is if you are watching someone go on any sort of drug trip, that's exactly what it's like.
So yeah, that whole, I don't know, it's like probably 10 minutes long. So I don't know if it counts as one scene, but I just liked that whole stretch.
Yeah, that whole segment.
As well. That
also,
was
sorry
really
if
good.
you can hear sirens outside of my place. Sorry.
That's fine. They're coming for you, Jess. They're coming
for
you.
No, I gotta get out of here. I would probably give it a 5. I thought it was fine. I did like certain parts of it. There were, and this is like kind of a big thing for me to say, but there were a lot of parts that I like could tell I was supposed to laugh and I just didn't find it was funny. And not every single bit, not every, whatever, but there were just, and I laugh at literally everything. So like
once I started noticing the trailer, like,
no, like there were, I mean, obviously cringe stuff just makes me cringe and doesn't make me laugh at all, but like excluding those few like, cringe jokes in it, like there were certain parts of the dialogue that I was like, I can tell that this, like when she said action and he woke up, like I was just like,
yeah,
oh, I get it.
Was just kind of like
so there are things like in it like that where I like could tell that was supposed to be like, oh my God, classic, whatever. And like, I think because I don't know him very well, and I'm not very big on his tropes or anything like that. Like, I know he overacts and I know like his whole shtick, whatever, but like They were just certain dialogue. But then I looked up the person that wrote it, and now I'm blanking on his name. But he hasn't really written much, so it wasn't like, but the writer wrote a movie that I didn't like, which I thought was going to be the case. But whoever wrote this, hold on, let me look it up real quick. Tom Gormican, he like really hasn't written that much else. There's like two.
Oh, he also directed it as well.
Yeah, it's That Awkward Moment was one thing, and then Ghosted is a TV show that he did in like 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
So the dude's not written a lot. So I don't know, because usually I can attribute like something like that to me just not vibing with the writing. Like I really like Tina Fey in everything that she's been in, but anything she's written I haven't been a fan of, and it's just because like,
oh, that's interesting.
But it's like weird because I'm a huge fan of her. I like read her book, whatever. I love her, but I don't like 30 Rock. So it's like that kind of weird. I figured like, okay, it's like, maybe it's just the writing, but it wasn't that. So I don't know if it was just, again, maybe me watching it on my own, and I should have been watching it with friends, or I should have been a bigger fan of Nic Cage going into the movie. I don't know if that was a part of it.
I think that definitely helps.
Overall it was fine.
Totally helps.
Exactly. But like I said, there were some parts that definitely made me laugh. There were like the acting was obviously great in it. It was just like amusing. I found it more amusing than funny. And I knew it was supposed to be a comedy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is I love the music in it, except for that one song. So like in general, I was like, it was good. I didn't hate it. That was kind of it. Favorite character, obviously, like you, I liked both of them. I think I liked Javi just because of how awkward he was, and I feel like everything I've seen Pedro Pascal, and he's like, not macho, but like, action man, whatever. And he was just like so awkward and timid like the whole time, which was very.
He's
funny.
got a good like puppy dog face.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was a good like golden retriever type energy. And then fave scene, I did also like the LSD segment, but I also really liked like from when they drive up to the cliff when they think they have to kill each other through when they're like getting chased after, just the like continuity of the shoe joke, like how like that whole conversation was so funny, and then
it
like
came back,
and then they're like, you're gonna kill me, whatever, and then as they're running and then being like, I can't fucking run in these shoes. Like, so just that whole bit was really funny to me. But then obviously, I think the LSD segment was like the funniest bit of the whole movie.
Yeah, totally.
Just there, like any scene that the two of them were in and it was just the two of them, I thought that was the best part of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also, I like the supporting cast, but I think that they,
without
those two,
yeah.
Obviously Nic Cage needed to be in the movie, but without Pedro Pascal, I don't know.
Yeah, like the woman that played his wife, the first conversation, or his ex-wife or whatever, the first conversation that they have, and she's like, getting upset with him or whatever, and then he's just like, gosh, whatever. Like their energy was kind of funny together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the supporting cast was good.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up for this one. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast catcher you're on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts, whatever. Google,
Bing, YouTube,
Yeah. Ask
Dropbox.
Jeeves. Drop us on Ask Jeeves. That really helps push us forward, and it has been working. So thank you for those who do it. You can follow us on Instagram at Movie Night Mates. Follow our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Movie Night Mates. We are Movie Night Mates on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at @theamazingspider_Dan, and our other co-host Avery is a missing Cav everywhere, and Jess is Miesica _ I was gonna do it for you for once, just to kind of get the whole spiel out.
No, you're right.
Shit. Goddamn. Okay. Anyway, Miesica _ everywhere. Haha. And that is it for today's episode. Not sure what we're gonna do next week. It's kind of a free week for the 24th. But after that, we're, I think, going into Sci-Fi July, or Summer of Sci-Fi, however you want to talk about it, and do a bunch of sci-fi movies in July. I was thinking, and I wish it was coming out, like we could potentially do it, but it would mean that we'd have to stay up so late, and I don't want to do that on a Thursday, is go see The Black Phone on Thursday and do it. Record an episode right afterwards.
No, bro.
And release it on Friday.
I need my sleep.
But yeah, because I love to try and do like a review of a movie that's still in theaters.
Yeah, true.
But maybe we could do that as July 1st.
I have such
and
a
then
bad
go
memory, dude. Like, because then when we would walk out of the theater, and I'd be like, "How did the movie start?"
Yeah, maybe I don't know. We'll discuss that, but
we'll sit in the very back row and then type notes on our phones so that we're not disturbing anybody, but we can take notes the whole time.
Precisely. Whatever's coming up next will be another review to round out the rest of the month, and then on to some sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
Thank you again for listening. We will see you next week for movie night. Goodbye. Bye.